Brad, the most fascinating thing happened this week. I was buying a piece of IKEA furniture online. I know, high living. I'm living big, living large. But I was buying a piece of IKEA furniture online, and at the end of the purchase process, it says, "Hey, do you want to sign up for inspirational emails from IKEA?" And I was like, "What? How? Why is IKEA wanting to send me what is that? What is that email from IKEA? Why would IKEA have anything inspirational to tell me?" Hans, every week is like, "Hello everyone, Hans checking in again. Just wanted to tell you to reach for the stars, and you can achieve your dreams if you do it. Especially with our new slogan. With the new slogan, you can hold all your books on one shelf." What is that email?
I'd be happy if they actually used words in your email. If their emails are anything like their instructions, it's all pictograms and symbols that I can't interpret and all kinds of stuff that I don't understand. It would be hieroglyphics.
They very wisely designed that dude to look so happy. You know, the profile big nose dude? He's so happy. He's like, "You're going to put together this couch." And then by the end, you're just cussing that guy. You're like, "But no, you didn't tell me about that screw. How do I end up with 8 extra screws, you jerk?"
Oh, I know. And it's like they've got these parts that are almost the same exact part, except one is maybe 1/8 of an inch longer. And they've got the line drawn through that one, and you're supposed to use the other one. It's so frustrating because, honest to goodness, couldn't you just design that thing so that they use the same screw? When it comes down to 1/8 of an inch, that's pretty much the same screw, right?
Yeah, that
1/8 of an inch ain't doing a whole lot.
That's on the engineer. You gotta just design it so that the same screw can be used both places. It's not that much extra effort. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
No, I think the IKEA email of inspiration is going to go something like this. You know, everyone's heart is a different size, but one Allen wrench turns them all. The Allen wrench of kindness.
Bless America.
You know, everything can be fixed with an Allen wrench.
If you own enough IKEA furniture, eventually you'll have a drawer full of Allen wrenches.
Oh, that's the truth. I've got so many Allen wrenches.
Because you save them thinking I might need this down the road. And then it's 40 of the same cheap, half steel iron wrench, Allen wrench.
Because you think, when am I going to need this again? I don't want to ever be in a situation where I'm short an Allen wrench. That'd be the dumbest problem in the world to have, you know?
But how many decades do you have now, Brad? When in life have you been "Oh, crap, if I only had an Allen wrench"?
Never. It has never happened. I've never needed an Allen wrench.
Well, speaking of engineers that are just being dicks, the ones that are really the worst is the engineers that call for you to use the screw wrench or the star wrench. Have you ever seen that one? It's the wrench it's the shape of a star. And you're like, who uses this?
Right.
Come on. What? Why you got to be so specific?
Now you're doing this intentionally to upset my life.
Right. That's just the guy showing off.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you use the wrong screw or something on that IKEA, there's a reason we go to IKEA. And it's because it's inexpensive press board, right? We're not looking for something fancy. But you've got to really slow down when you're putting that stuff together, because if you use the wrong screw, there's no way that screw is going to hold a second time. You've now bored out that hole. You're done. The best you can do is maybe put some wood glue in there and hope it's going to hold. But you've got one chance at making that sucker right, and then you're euchred.
Well, and the thing that Gloria and I have learned over the years with IKEA furniture is you get one chance to move it. So you can put it it in this corner, but then if a year or two from now you move it to another corner, that's it. That's all you get. If you try to move it a second time, it's always cattywampus. It's always tilting a little bit, or it's a lean, you'll never get it right again.
It'll never be the same. It's very touchy stuff. No, it's funny you mentioned that, because I did the same thing. I went to IKEA and bought a desk because I'm going ahead with not only an intern this semester, but I'm going to bring an assistant in to help with some of the stuff. And I've had to put a little workstation together so I could have them work someplace. And I'm sitting there last week putting together a damn desk and cursing under my breath.
That's exciting. You know what's fun about your first hires and your first welcomes into your studio, because I remember this moment, is picking out okay, they're gonna need a stapler, they're gonna need some scissors, they're gonna need a pencil, they're gonna need a pen. It's like you're a teacher, you're putting together a little desk for your student. It's kind of fun.
Oh, I was so proud. The intern came in last Wednesday, and she's gonna be perfect. I knew right away she's just a perfect type of person. She's kind of nerdy. She's definitely an art student. She's kind of got that nerdy art student, which is exactly what you want for something like this. Because she cares about this stuff. She has a passion for it. And I instantly was like, it clicked with her. It's like, yeah, this is going to work. But I was so proud showing her to what was going to be her desk, because I've got this empty drawer and an empty shelf. And I'm like, and that's your place. You can keep anything you want there that you might need from week to week.
Because I know that feeling. You're like, and this bookshelf is yours. Anything you want to put your backpack here, that's fine. You're like,
I've got a microwave and a little refrigerator. You can bring your lunch if you want. Oh, I'm so, it's like feathering a nest.
Look at us building our little empires, Brad, building our little empires.
Yes. And it's been so interesting for the assistants. It's like, within 5 minutes whether this person's right or not.
Yeah.
It's like within 5 minutes, I've been able to figure out who these people were, what they were like. And I've had 2 so far. I've got 1 more scheduled, and unless somebody else pops up. And it's been really interesting. One person basically said stuff like, well, I'm not so good at time management, and I don't really know what I want to do with my life. And but I'm open to any possibility. And it's like, you know what? You're probably not going to be great at this, because somebody who for something like this, you want somebody who says the exact opposite of those things.
Right. Right.
And it's so funny how quickly it happens. But it's been I'm hoping to tell you more as time goes on, but I'm very excited about that aspect of
I'm excited for you and proud for you that you have new people coming into the studio to work with. That's great. I also welcome someone new into the studio this week. It's the reason why I built that IKEA furniture. And for me,
really?
That person is the 20-volume Oxford English Dictionary full set from a library that I bought. Ba-boom!
Really? Are you being serious with me?
No, so I, as a kid growing up, we always had an encyclopedia set and a giant physical, 5-inch wide dictionary next to our dinner table. And I grew up in a family of 7 kids. And anytime somebody didn't know a word, my mom or dad would say, go look it up, right, during dinner.
Right.
So they always had the dictionary nearby. And I always lusted after dictionaries. And then I moved to England when I was 20 years old. And I learned about the full Oxford English Dictionary, which is the biggest dictionary of any language ever produced. It's 20 volumes, and it takes up about 4.5 feet in linear width. And I lusted after it. And then I found out that the dang thing costs $1,000. And I was like, well, never buying that.
Yeah.
And anyway, on a conversation the other day on Twitter with Ryan North, somehow the topic of the OED happened to come up. And I was like, I'm going to search on Craigslist and see if anybody's selling one. And sure enough, a library was getting rid of one. And so I got it super cheap. And now it's living on that new IKEA bookshelf in my studio.
Wow. I thought you were kidding, but you really did. That's fantastic.
This is Brad making fun of me is what that voice is. I want you to note exactly, everyone, what the tone of that voice is. Wow, that's fantastic. And then literally the biggest eye roll ever on the other end of that mic is what that was.
What a tremendous waste of money that was.
Oh, you can walk off a pier. I'll tell you what.
So, I mean, listen, that's my initial reaction, but that is actually... I'm serious. I mean, that was my initial reaction, but that is a brilliant purchase, because words and the nuance of words and the interrelationship of words is all about what we do, and is what makes you and I've said this before, unsolicited, makes you such a good writer of humor, is because you're so tuned into words. So I'm at the same time as my initial reaction is that, that's a weird purchase. It's also the voice inside my head is going, you could stand to benefit from some of that weirdness, because it's what makes him such a good writer.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that course correction from insult to compliment. That was nice of you. No, I'll tell you. For me, one of the things about the Oxford English Dictionary, the full set, that always has intrigued me is that you can not only look up a word, find the 20 definitions of it, but you can look up the etymology of words, which is it's the
Oh,
only dictionary that has this to the extent that it does. So
yeah.
I can look up what the word springtime meant in the 1900s, what it meant in the 1800s, what it meant in the 17th, and like you don't think that that's useful, but it is. It's helpful to
Right.
know where words spring from, haha, or where words, their own course in English history. So it's really nice to have the etymological history of words in a dictionary.
Oh, yeah. And etymology is fascinating. I don't know whether you remember this. I forget which, I think it might have been the Backerkit conversation at PatreCon, but we were sitting there and there was a lady behind us who was a linguist. And we had a short conversation with her. And I ended up following her on Twitter because she does a language podcast. And I follow her on Twitter just because the things that she tweets about, and which often goes into etymology, are fascinating. She's got a fascinating Twitter feed. So I'm totally on board with this. Learning etymology is a fantastic resource.
Yeah. So listen, is it a dumb purchase to buy the full 20 set volumes of the English language? Yes, it is. But is it also awesome and I'll use it the rest of my life? Yes, I will. It's kind of, I think, I don't know. I'm very excited about having this in my studio. So that's.
Well,
Anyway,
that's wonderful. I'm happy for you.
Thank you, condescending friend. And on that note, hello, everybody, and welcome to Comic Lab, the show about making comics.
And making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, editor of webcomics.com and cartoonist of Evil Inc.
And I'm his unstupidly dictionary-buying friend, Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of Stripped.
And this week's Hour of Comics Advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. And Dave, let's talk comics.
Let's talk comics, my friend. It's always nice when we get into the show and it's 13 minutes in and we're like, all right, let's start.
Let's stop talking about ourselves and start talking comics. That should be our new intro.
That's right.
Enough about us.
So, Brad, before we get into our Patreon questions and all that sort of stuff, I have a question for you that I thought would be fun to start off with. Because I had this thought pop into my mind, oddly enough, yesterday as I was putting together that IKEA bookshelf. So, if you could travel through time and work under the tutelage of any cartoonist that's ever lived, who would it be? Like you get like a year to work in their studio, and then after that year is over, you immediately pop back into this exact same moment, but you have all the knowledge that you gained for a year. So you could work under. I mean, with you, I'm guessing it's probably going to be like a Jack Kirby. But who would it be that you could jump into time anywhere in time and space? Would it be in Japan? Would it be in France? Would it be in the U.S., in New York in the 40s? What artist would you work under to get their tutelage?
Well, first of all, man, oh man, am I ever going to, if I tell you the truth about this, people are going to hate me. I'm not completely sure I would want to work under Jack Kirby. And I know that's kind of like sacrilege to say for comics fans. But there's a lot of things that Kirby was, first of all, he kind of the mind spring of Marvel Comics. I mean, certainly from the stuff that I've read, the Fantastic Four, absolutely, he was a big part of creating that, and the rest of the Marvel universe. As an artist, I'm not sure I'd want my art to be influenced by him. I would want my approach to comics to be influenced by him. Like that every time you see somebody breaking through a panel, that's a Jack Kirby homage, right? Where everything was very neatly inside panels. All of a sudden, he busted through the panels. That's significant. But in terms of like there's a lot of his drawing that just was kind of heavy and cumbersome. And I loved what he brought to comics. His art style specifically, I'm not so sure about. Not as much as I am about another Marvel artist by the name of John Buscema. And you know him, Dave, as the guy that drew and probably provided most of the information for how to draw comics the Marvel way. That was John Buscema. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Was John the one that did the video with Stan Lee?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
That
All
was
right.
him.
So if you haven't seen this one, so Stan is the most natural showman ever, right? He's like, okay, true believers, on this week's episode, we're going to talk about line work, right? And he's smooth and he's flowing. And then he goes, what do you think, John? What are we going to draw this week? And they cut to John, who's just flop sweating and nervous. And he's like, well, Stan, we're going to work on chiaroscuro shading, and we're going to see what we could do. And God, I cannot recommend this video enough just for watching John's anxiousness as he's like, oh, shit, I'm on camera. Oh, shit, this is terrible. This is not what I want.
Yeah, he was not a natural, as I remember. Although I don't know that I've seen all of those videos. I've seen little clips and stuff, but I've got to go and look at that for myself.
But it's just amazing because Stan, who can't draw but is an incredible showman, is like, okay, here we go. We're having a lot of fun. And then John, who can draw but can't talk for the life of him, is like, and that's how you do shading on a tree.
And by the way, that's me on every live streaming drawing I've ever done. That I totally identify with that. I know live streaming is popular and everything. Man, I can, and I found out some truth about myself. The last couple of ones I did, I need to live stream my inking process only, because when I'm live streaming penciling and I'm still kind of ideating and still in the creative part of it,
right?
What happens is people very helpfully out of a position of love will either say something like, "Don't you think it should be XYZ? Like, don't you think you should write it this way?" Or they'll say, "You've got this person drawn wrong. You might want to look into that." And here's the deal. When I'm drawing, when I'm in the creative process, I know all of that. And I'm struggling to get through it. There's nothing worse than struggling with something and having somebody point out that you're struggling with something.
Right.
And I sit there and just seethe, and it bothers me for the rest of the day. So I need to, when I'm live streaming, and I'm just as awkward as John was, I need to do this when I'm inking only. Like, all the creative parts have been done. Now I'm just going over and finalizing everything. Having somebody involved in my creative process, looking over my shoulder and pointing out that I'm struggling with things, that's that's going to be the death of me.
Right. Okay, so if you had to pick one cartoonist to tutelage with, you would say, and I'm just gonna roughly quote you here. You wouldn't. So your quote wouldn't work with that hack Jack Kirby. Is that what you said?
No, don't say that. There's going to be somebody who hears that and believes you.
No. I want to maximize the hate mail that you get. So you said Jack Kirby couldn't draw his way out of a box. Is that what the phrase you used? I'm just trying to remember what you actually said.
No, I would if I could. So here's my thought process on this. Really, a tutor can only show you how to do certain things that are mechanical.
Right.
In other words, immediately I thought, for me, Gary Larson, who did The Far Side, his name immediately popped up.
Oh.
But his mind works in such a discursive way, there's no way he could explain to me how he could tell me certain things about his creative process, but he couldn't tell me how his brain gets to where it gets.
Right.
He can tell me how he drew the lady with the horn-rimmed glasses, but he couldn't tell me the important thing, which is what's going on inside your brain. And I feel the same way about Jack Kirby. Everything that's important about Jack Kirby was about the mental process that brought him to where he was and had all these amazing breakthroughs. I don't know that you can teach that, but what John Buscema had, the draftspersonship, the ability to really draw these tight, wonderfully in perspective, complicated images, that I think is more mechanical, and I think you could teach, which is why if I had to choose, it would probably be more Buscema than Kirby, and probably wouldn't waste, I don't want to say waste my time, but I don't know that Gary Larson could ever tell you how to do what he does.
Right.
You know what I mean? What do you think? Who would your person be?
Well, first of all, I think you're right that it's I would lean towards learning drafting skills than writing skills, just because I think it's a little more easier to transfer technical skills than it is to transfer the somewhat nebulous skill of writing. Because like with Gary Larson, those are just like weird orthogonal thoughts that popped into his mind that he connected disparate ideas and like it made for a funny, a joke. But it's very hard to step into his brain as he's probably sitting quietly working on the script for that day's strip. But you can sit and watch Buscema draw and go, oh, I see what he's doing. I see how he's laying that out. So, yeah, I would pick either David Lowe, who was a British World War II. He was actually Australian, but worked in Britain, cartoonist, famous for his Hitler cartoons, anti-Hitler cartoons. And he drew with a brush and had an almost Japanese, traditional Japanese line quality that was beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And so he drew both standing up and drew with a brush. And I just want to learn how he did that. That is so specific. And he also did it while he was smoking. So I'm always amazed by artists back in the day that could not only is he drawing standing up, not only is he using a brush standing up, but he's also got a cigarette in the other hand. Like how are they doing that? So anyway, not that I want to learn how to smoke, but it's just like you're doing 9 tasks at once,
Yeah.
So David Lowe would be one. And then I'd also want to learn from George McManus, who's a 1920s, 30s American cartoonist who did Bringing Up Father, who...
Really? And you've got one of his originals, right?
Yeah, I do, yeah. And he had a totally different line style. If anything, his was super controlled. He had he's famous for his Art Deco interiors and really tight, almost mathematical line quality for his backgrounds. Almost like a Chris Ware, very right-angle-y kind of drawings, really beautifully done. And then the third person that I'd want to learn from is Watterson. I would love to see him at his height doing his brushwork because I got a sense of how he does it from his very light penciling, but I'd be curious to see how he, and the funny thing in talking with him about it is that I didn't realize he's such a perfectionist that how many drafts he would do. Like you would get a whole comic done and be like, nah, that's not good enough and toss it and do it again, which is something that I have not done in like a decade. It's like, that's good enough. Right. And there it goes onto the internet.
Wouldn't you love to just have one of his cast-offs? Like it wouldn't have any worth because it didn't make it into print, but wouldn't you love to just have what's in his trash?
Well, yeah. So speaking of his trash, did I ever tell you the story that I had, or the conversation I had with Jeannie Schultz, Charles Schultz's widow?
No, I don't know.
So she was giving Fred and I a tour of his studio, which is still in the same layout as when he passed.
Yeah.
And she goes, and in that trash can, every day he would throw away half-finished comic strips that he didn't like. And Fred and I go, oh, interesting. But his secretary had the wherewithal every day to take them out of the trash and unflatten them and kind of give them a light iron. And she kept them all for like 40 or 50 years. And Fred and I, like this slow creeping smile spread across our face because we're like, that's amazing. He, being an insecure artist and also not liking stuff that he didn't like, was like, toss that, throw it. I never want to see that again. She, being someone who appreciated who he was and what skill he had, was like, no, this has value and I'm going to save it. And so she saved them all over the years. Wow. And I think they still have them at the museum, the cast-offs. And so from a historical standpoint, it's fun just to see what he stopped or what he changed or what he what he changed his mind on. So anyway, boy, we got off topic there. But so for me, it would be David Lowe, George McManus, and Bill Watterson. And for you, it would be Jack Kirby, big time Jack Kirby fan, Brad Geiger. I'm just kidding. I just want to make sure that
I actually am a big time Jack Kirby fan, but I don't know that I want to learn drawing from him.
No, can I tell you? I'm throwing you under the bus because I secretly am also not a big fan of Jack Kirby. I don't know. It's something about the line style for me feels heavy and feels I don't know. It doesn't feel expressive more than it feels like, I'm the embodiment of power kind of a thing, Like,
right.
The hands are always like a fifth size too large. You know what I mean?
And the fingernails are the fingernails are rectangles.
Yep. Anyway, we're now setting ourselves up for everyone's favorite game. Yes, it's time to send hate mail to Brad and Dave. They've disparaged one of the great heroes of comics, and now it's time for you to send them hate mail. All right, Brad, why don't you tell Dave and Brad what they've won for this next week on Twitter?
You've won the ability to open up your Twitter and have somebody randomly accuse you of taking a shit on a topic again.
All right, Brad, that's going to be fun for them.
Oh yes. So Dave, I'm gonna move things along here because I've got a question that I want to ask of you
All right.
because I know you've been going through this Kickstarter and you've been fulfilling requests, and I know this is also the first time that you've used Backerkit. So
Yes.
I want to bring it around to this. How has that process been going? Do you like it? Do you find it needs improvement in some place? Let's have an in the process review. How is Backerkit working for you?
Oh, you know what? I'm really glad you brought this up because we're in the process of doing fulfilling right now, like as of this morning,
Yeah.
and as of yesterday. So, as you remember from Backerkit, I was very hesitant and frankly a little bit critical when we first talked about them, or you were promoting them as saying like this was a
Mhm.
service that I found worthwhile, and I was like, nah, this pricing seems weird, and I don't know about this. Anyway, to their great credit, the folks from Backerkit reached out to me and said, in the kindest of words, "Hey, we heard your criticisms of Backerkit. We would love to work with you and take you through Backerkit. We think you might like it." And so I said, you know what? In the spirit of being open and honest about it, I haven't yet tried Backerkit. It's not fair of me to criticize what I haven't tried. So I tried it on this most recent Drive Kickstarter. And so the Kickstarter itself made 116. And then with the Backerkit, I think it ended up making something like an extra 4. So it brought the
Wow.
overall Kickstarter up to 120 when you think about it. So first of all,
Yeah.
that itself is fantastic. But the thing that I really want to sing the praises of Backerkit for is their, and it's an unfortunate use of back twice, but Backerkit's back end is
Uh-huh.
really helpful in terms of collating data, organizing data, reaching out to users and backers on a consistent and easy to use way. Um, I kind of feel like the logistics is where they shine. They are really good
Yes.
at making data manageable because it can be unmanageable when you have a lot of people doing a Kickstarter. And so they have pre-written emails that you can send to people at very specific stages of a Kickstarter. They talk you through how to do different processes. And also they are Backerkit, the people themselves are very available. You get assigned to a person who is walking you through it and helping you through the process. And like you, I found that the most, not aggravating, but the most time tedious part was entering in all my SKUs. Because
Yeah.
like you, I
Yeah.
have, 10 to 30 SKUs that I can put in of like things that they can add on. And that just takes a while. But frankly, now that it's set up, when it comes time to do my next Kickstarter, I'm just going to copy over and apply all those SKUs and bam, I'm ready to go, much like you
Yep.
did. So I think I don't think I will use Kickstarter for or Backerkit for smaller Kickstarters, ones that I think won't generate that much money and don't need that much logistical help. But for bigger ones like the Drive hardcovers that have more people and more money and frankly more headaches when it comes to logistics, I now think Backerkit was a really great choice, and I'm glad that I did it. And I'm really thankful to them for their help in the process. And I would recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah. The toughest part for me was entering in all of the weights and measures for the shipping tables.
Yeah.
That was really difficult. And I don't know, and I'm sure they can correct me. I needed to get special help moving those shipping tables over to my new Backerkit when I did a second Kickstarter.
Right.
Although, in their credit, all I did was I dropped my contact a line, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I can do that for you." And she went in, and boom, 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 it was done.
Right.
One thing I do need to note, and it is significant. Do you still use Indicia for postage
I do.
when you're
Yes.
shipping things yourself?
Yep.
That goes back to the Webcomics Weekly days. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's right.
That was our first and possibly only sponsor.
Yeah,
But
that's right. They sponsored us. I
yeah,
forgot about
and
that.
for a long time that discount code still worked. I checked a few years ago, and it is now defunct. But for a long time that still worked.
I love Cheapy Brad Geiger still riding high off a discount code from 2004.
That's right. So I one thing I do need to note is that their pricing on international shipments is higher than what I can get myself through Indicia by about $4 or $5 per package.
Yeah.
Like, it's significant. So whenever I'm doing international shipping, you can't. I'll just print that shipping out myself on Indicia, ship it, and then I'll mark it as fulfilled in Backerkit, as opposed to doing the processing the postage through Backerkit.
Right.
They're a little bit more expensive on domestic things too, but it's like 25 to 50 cents, and or not, maybe not even 50, but like it's pennies. Let's put it that way. It's pennies, and it's not what I gain in being able to print out 50 of these labels at a time and just go bang, 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 bang. Now I've got a bunch of boxed up books. That's worth a little bit extra. I don't sneeze at that at all. But for international shipping, I don't use Backerkit. I go through my own means because I save a substantial amount of money.
Well, and the reason why Brad's pointing that out is because shipping in many respects will be either your largest or your second largest expense in fulfilling a Kickstarter. So that's not a small concern. Like with this Drive Kickstarter, I think it's going to end up being somewhere between $14,000 and $20,000 just for the postage. So that's not insignificant. I mean, that's a good used car in most parts of America. So I think you want to take a good, careful look whenever you're doing your fulfilling. First of all, you want to price it right and make sure you've done your homework on your pricing before your Kickstarter launches. And then, like Brad says, when you're doing even a great service like Backerkit, sometimes if you price things out in different ways, and sometimes with fulfillment services, you'll find that there are price breaks internationally for people that do volume shipping. So if you're working with a fulfilling agent, sometimes if they use DHL or FedEx International or whatever it is on a volume basis, they get a discount that's far greater than you as an individual could get. And in this case, that's what Brad was able to find with Indicia, which is not a volume shipper, but they get a volume discount because they do so much business international, don't you think, with USPS? So anyway, that's a great follow-up point from Brad Geiger. Brad Geiger with the win. Hey, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we're going to tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
When you do, you're going to get hours and hours of podcasts that we recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And access to our exclusive Discord server, which is a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And listen, if you can't swing a pledge this month, we get it. No worries.
Yeah, listen, you can still support the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.
Just leave a 5-star review and a few kind words.
That, along with mentions on social media, is incredibly helpful.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics. Okay, so Brad, changing topics real quick. I was listening to a recent podcast while I draw, and I know, boy, what a narcissist moment that I'm listening to my own podcast while I was drawing. But I was drawing, and I was listening to a point that you made, and you used a phrase that you used it a couple times, and I was like, I'm not 100% sure that I understand what this phrase means. And now you may be telling yourself, now, David, you have the largest dictionary in the English language right next to your drawing desk now. Why don't you use that? But here's the question.
Look it up.
So it's a phrase. I can't look up phrases, but you keep saying, like, in the context of someone's career, you kept using the phrase, well, time is a continuum, and blankety, blankety, blank. And I realized that I don't specifically know what the phrase time is a continuum means in context of talking about someone's career. Can you explain that to me real quick?
Yes. Well, listen, Dave, the etymology of the word continuum comes from the Latin root continue, which means that it keeps going. Nothing out of that, huh? You thought I was being serious.
You're not going to get anything. Listen, this is a genuine question, and I want a genuine answer.
Okay, well, here's what I mean. When we look at our careers and we look at things like goals, and I think I've used time as a continuum specifically talking about things like careers and goals and stuff like this. Like quitting our day job and going full time, or realizing that we've had success as an artist. What happens is we tend to look at our lives as being episodic, as saying, well, when I quit my day job and go full time as a cartoonist, I will have succeeded. It will be the end of that episode, and then I will live in success. Or looking at the fact that maybe I'm not very good at doing something right now, and so I assume that I'm just always going to be at that same level of quality, and I'll never get better. Or I'll always be at a certain level, either a quality or quantity when it comes to webcomics. I'll always be at this certain level. And what I'm trying to express when I say that time is a continuum is that we are living in an ever changing state. And you are at a certain quality of art right now. But as you continue and you continue to practice and grow, your art is going to get better. Your writing is going to get better. And all of these things happen in a continuous state. So you may be at a place right now where you don't feel as if you're successful in a certain area of your creative life.
Right.
That's going to continue and change and evolve. And it doesn't mean that you're going to stay at that same level forever. It's not episodic. It's continuous, right? So what I'm trying to get across is that to try to thwart some of the frustration that gets built into living a creative life. And you think, oh, I'm never going to get better at this. I'm always going to be at this one level, whether it's and this goes for a number of things, like the number of Instagram followers you have, or
like if I can just get to this, then my career will be happening.
Right.
Okay.
But time is a continuum. And when you get to, like right now, I felt I needed to cross 1,000 Instagram followers because it bothered me that I wasn't at 4 digits. Well, now I'm at 1,000. My life's exactly the same, and I want to get to 2,000. And by the way, when I get to 2,000, I'm going to want to get to 3,000 because time is a continuum.
So
right?
This is like the career version of like when you've left high school and you're going into college and you're like, now I'm going to be a cool guy. I'm going to start over and I'm going to have a new personality and everyone's going to think I'm great. And oh boy, I'm going to smooch so many human beings and this is going to be a great time in college. Oh, I'm going to do great. And then you get there and you're like, hi, I'm Brad Geiger, totally new guy. You can call me Bradley J. Hey, how you doing? And then you turn out to be the same guy you were in high school. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm saying the exact opposite of that. I'm saying that it is possible to evolve, that it is possible to reinvent yourself. Because when you do that, you're kind of doing a little self-deprecation. But I had that experience too when I went to college, and I wanted to reinvent myself. And to a certain extent, you're right. Certain things were the same. I didn't smooch any more people in college than I did in high school, which is not great news for my love life. But there were some lessons that I did learn in high school that I was able to apply in college. My friendships were built on much more stable ground because I learned a little bit about what it means not only to have a friend, but to, more importantly, to be a friend.
So to clarify then, your use of time as a continuum is that there is change, but that it is more gradual and slow and on a spectrum than it is like switch being turned. Now your career is happening. It's more like now you are getting better at penciling. Now you are getting better at your writing of whole full characters, right? But it's a 5-year span, not I'm walking through a doorway and now everything is working kind of a timeline.
It's a 1,000-year span. Think about it this way. Think about how much trouble married couples get into because we believe in episodic life. We believe in episodic thinking. So how much trouble would you be in with your wife? And I've seen you guys up close. I know I think I know pretty well how you guys work relationship wise. How much trouble would you be with your wife if you took the mindset of an episodic thinker and said, well, she's married, she loves me now, and I can stop worrying about that and turn to other things because she's my wife who loves me? No, you reestablish that love every day. You do things to keep her happy, for lack of a better word. You do things to nurture that relationship every day, and she does things to nurture you every day.
That I'm on the other end of this, just weeping like, I do, Brad. I do fall in love with her every day. Every day is a reestablishment of our love, Brad.
Yes, but I'm being totally serious. If I looked at Carolyn and says, "Well, you've been wooed now. You're officially wooed."
You've been wooed.
Now, just sit there and stay wooed. No, I've got to do. I want to do things every week that remind her, you're still important to me. You're still the most important person in my life. You're still the person that I'm doing this for, and making you happy makes me happy. If you're an episodic thinker, then your wife or your life partner is wooed, and that's it. If you are a time continuum partner, then you know that you need to keep doing this, and you want to keep doing this because it gives you joy throughout the rest of your life. That
Right.
time is a continuum. That's what that whole phrase to me means. Maybe there's a better way for me to phrase it, but that's what I'm trying to
No,
get across.
I really genuinely appreciate you taking me through that because it gave me a bigger insight into how you view the world and life. And also it gives me a better context to understand it when you use it in the future. Because you've used it a few times and I've always been like, aha, like think, you know how you do conversationally where you go, yeah, sure. Time is a continuum. And then later on, you're like, wait, what did they mean by that? And so I'm glad that I understand better now how you use that phrase. So thank you. I genuinely thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad you did because it's something I really it's a life philosophy that I really feel strongly about, and getting a chance to talk about it more deeply is something I appreciate.
Yeah, no, well, good. Well, that also leads us directly into another passion point that you wanted to bring to the show. That quote from Joe
Yeah.
Rogan that you had mentioned to me over text earlier. Do
Oh
you want to
my
bring that one up?
gosh. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about. So I saw there was this quote that Joe Rogan shared not too long ago about what I call all costs success. I'm gonna go through and read it. It's a little long, so you're gonna have to bear with me. But this was a quote that Joe Rogan shared on one of his social media. Quote: "If you're gonna try, go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, and maybe even your mind. It could mean not eating for 3 or 4 days. It could mean freezing on a park bench. It could mean jail. It could mean derision. It could mean mockery, isolation. Isolation is the gift. All the others are a test of your endurance, of how much you really want to do it. And you'll do it despite rejection and the worst odds. And it will be better than anything else that you can imagine. If you're going to try, go all the way. There's no other feeling like that. You will be alone with the gods, and the nights will flame with fire. You will ride life straight to perfect laughter. It is the only good fight there is." And he's quoting there from a book called Factotum by Charles Bukowski. Which, if you look it up, it might tell you a little bit about why I'm so adamantly against everything that whole thing stands for, and I think is dangerous. So let's talk about this, Dave.
I'm always fascinated first by a quote that's like, you could lose wives, you could lose girlfriends. And a part of you is like, or boyfriends or husbands?
Yes, yes.
First of all, you're like, hold on, there's a whole half of humanity there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what do I think of that quote? I agree with you that is dangerous thinking. That is the kind of beautiful mind thinking that eventually has you living in a cabin with a bunch of pieces of paper tacked up to walls with red string tied between them. Like,
Yes,
I'm going to figure out the patterns of the universe, Brad, and only I can do it. I don't need to interact with human beings. So yeah, that's it's a mania that's a little not a little dangerous, a lot dangerous, but I will say this, that in the interest of fairness, before we dig into all the things that are wrong with that, in my 20s, I had a drive to be a cartoonist that was probably a little dangerous, if I'm honest about it.
Yeah.
I stayed up very late at night to cartoon when I came home from Mattel Toys, and I would, when I would do for certain types of art, I would forget to get a glass of water or go to the bathroom or have dinner because I would be in the middle of drawing or painting. And I would forget to go do that. And looking back on it, I was like, boy, that was a real mania on my part to become a cartoonist. And that was not a healthy way to live your life. And thankfully, as I've gotten older and life kind of forces you to calm down a bit, you go, oh, that wasn't the right way to do that. But what that's done is, in the context of this discussion, it's given me an insight into, I see how an artist can get fooled thinking, if I just work harder, if I work constantly, if I never talk to another human being, if I wall myself into a room and I just go, that's how I'll achieve success. Because it's the lie that a mania tells you, which is that if you just work harder than anyone, then by God, it's going to happen for you. And that's not always the case. It's usually better to work smarter, not harder. But where are your initial thoughts about that quote?
I've got so many thoughts about this, Dave. And number one, when you were in your 20s, you could be more manic because you were in your 20s. In other words, there's less of a danger of that kind of mania in your 20s. But and this ties right into this whole concept of time as a continuum. The thing
Which
that's
we've been explained, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
But this is what's dangerous about that, because you've got people of in all stages of their own continuum listening to this. And okay, if a 20-year-old listens to this and kind of goes full bore for a little while, there's a little bit less danger in that. Although I'm going to still argue a little inherent danger. But if you're at a different stage in your continuum, and like for example, if you've got a life partner and you've got dependents that depend on you,
Right.
taking that advice is disastrous. You can't say I'm going to be successful, and that's more important than my relationship with my significant other. You can't say, well, maybe I'm just not going to eat this month if you've got kids, and that takes an entire group of people who just that know in their heart of hearts that they can't make that decision. That makes them feel helpless and useless because they're making sane choices.
Right, right.
If you've got kids, you can't say, well, we're just not going to have a heater this week because daddy's got to draw the comics. No, you can't do that. And also what it means is if success hasn't come to you, let's say you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, or wherever you are at your stage in life, and you don't feel as if success has come to you to the degree that you thought it was going to come. This is not a time to say, well, I didn't work hard enough when I was in my 20s, or it's time for me to really bear down now that I'm in my 40s. No, it means that you need to keep doing what you can do at the same time as you're maintaining a life balance that keeps your kids well taken care of, that keeps your relationship with the love of your life well taken care of. And if it means that success for you is going to come a little bit later, that's okay. This whole idea of getting success in your 20s and 30s is kind of whacked. Anyway, we keep getting reminders. Speaking of Jack Kirby, he didn't create the Fantastic Four until he was in his 40s. And be careful there, because he did create Captain America when he was in his 20s. But success, the real true success, if it doesn't come until later, is okay.
Right.
We've got a creative history littered with people who are called second act successes. People that tried it in their 20s, left it, maybe became, insurance salesmen or, secretaries or whatever, and then got the bug again and came back and became second act successes. And their success was just as beautiful, just as sweet, just as fulfilling as those people who had success in their 20s. So I'm very, very against the idea of this success at all costs mindset that he's sharing there on social media. I think that you have to remember that time is a continuum, and you need to get your success on your terms and also live a good life. You got to be a good artist, but you've also got to be a good partner and a good parent and I'm going to say it. It's dopey, but I'm going to say it, a good citizen, a good member of your community.
Wrong. I mean, listen, it's not by accident that this sentiment is coming from a poet. And let me phrase this a little bit in a way so I think what happens with some poets is because they look at the arc of their career and they go, well, there's not going to be any money in this for me. I'm never going to be able to buy that house in Malibu. But so they get this weird God complex. But Brad, what I will do, though, is trip the light fantastic and touch the very face of God, and lo, I will have unlocked all the secrets. And oh, the beauty will flow through me, the poet. I should be the one. And it's this odd God complex of all the sacrifices will have been worth it, Brad, for I will touch the very face of beauty, and I will transmit these ideas. And you're like, all right, slow it down there, champ. How about just living a good life and producing some nice art? How about just that? Would that be all right? Maybe just bring it down a notch.
How about do what you can do this week to get a little bit better and be a good parent along the way,
Yeah,
and take
yeah.
your recycling out,
Yeah,
and
yes, yeah.
educate yourself about the politics around you so that you can talk about them
Yeah,
more
and help a
intelligently.
stranger out a little bit maybe this week or
Yeah,
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 exactly. Yeah, so also it's also coming from him specifically who has a billion other issues, but
yeah.
yeah, so I think we both agree that this is a dangerous route for an artist. And as we've learned, time is a continuum, and I say that sincerely in the sense that if I want to be like those artists I mentioned at the top of the show, David Lowe or Bill Watterson or George McManus, time is a continuum, and I may not be able to work all night and get myself in a room and let my beard grow long because I will become the greatest artist. But what I will
Yeah,
do is if I keep working at this, Brad, for another 20, 30 years, I'll get pretty good. And I'll
yeah.
certainly get better than I am right now. And maybe with every week with a little bit of improvement and a little bit of stretching, but also maintaining my roles as father and friend and husband as child and neighborhood citizen, that you can also maintain a good life while also chasing those dreams. So
Yeah, and not only that, if you're doing it right, you'll enjoy every step along the way.
right, it shouldn't. There is sacrifice in a life of art, but it doesn't need to be painful sacrifice. You know, it doesn't.
Right.
There, it can be joy filled, and frankly, even in the moments where that are tricky, it can be joy filled. So it doesn't have to be this thing of like, and you never can eat, and you can never take a shower, and you can never be
Right.
talking to
Right.
other human beings. You know, like that's that attitude is that way lies the way of madness. I think, frankly, towards
Yeah,
the end,
no,
you
the word you're looking for is dangerous, because what that also does is it sets up a system in which if you haven't achieved a certain level of success, that whole mindset tells you, well, that's because you didn't work hard enough, you didn't sacrifice enough,
right, right.
it's your fault. Well, your own culpability in your success, it cannot be underestimated. However, there's a lot of other things that go into this, and there's a lot of variables, and if you haven't succeeded yet, it isn't because you didn't sacrifice and you didn't beat yourself up and you didn't put your relationships through enough of a difficult time. It just means that for you it hasn't happened yet, and your journey is still ongoing, and there's a joy in that too. So
Right.
don't let people like this make you feel guilty. That's a dead end.
Yeah, and if we're looking for models of how to have lived a happy life, his was not the model that you're shooting for. So yeah, I think the short version is Brad has put the perfect button on that one, and so let's move on, Brad, to our last topic of the show. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. So this is something that I wanted to talk about with because we're nearing the economic cycles have anywhere from a 7 to 20-year cycle usually in American history where it's boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust. And the last bust having been around 2009, we're now in 2019. It's been about 10 years. And just based on, I can't speak for the Philadelphia housing market, but looking around me in the Los Angeles housing market, I can tell you that we're starting to bubble up again, and that things are
Yep.
about to pop. Sometime in the next 1 to 4 years. And so, I just wanted to put this idea out there for cartoonists that now, when things are comparatively good and comparatively smooth running, and things are working well for most people, now is
Mhm.
the time to prepare for a recession in your overall cartooning arc of a career. Uh, so, Brad, um, what does that mean to you in terms of preparing long term? Because we all try to maintain a little bit of savings. With you, I imagine, given the age of your kids, you're probably saving for college a little bit or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We all have a little bit socked away in case our transmission blows or something like that happens. But what would it mean to you preparing for a recession in the economy sometime in the next 1 to 4 to 5 years?
Oh, that's a really great question. And other than the obvious things like savings and 401ks and stuff like that. Uh and you're right. Right now, our main focus is on getting the two guys through college. That's really the main focus. But also with me particularly, and it's one of the things I'm charging my new assistant when whomever that is starts working, and that is to really go through the archive of work that I've created and find different ways to monetize it in terms of repackaging it or reassembling it, putting ebooks together that haven't been done yet, stuff like that. Really, this is the time when I can pay an assistant that I need to really be building out all of my publishing so that I'm using that archive to the absolute maximum of its efficiency. And that's right now where my main focus is on. But I also know that you're way better at this than I am. So what are you doing to prepare for an upcoming recession?
Well, so I think that's great. First of all, the other one that I would recommend, and it's a long-standing thought that we have put out there, which is that if you view the metaphor of your career as a table, you want to have as many legs as possible under that table. So for example, if Brad's eating dinner at a table and I kick one of the legs out, that whole table is going to go akimbo and all that food's going to go all over the place, right? But if
Right.
Brad has constructed his table with not just the standard four at each corner, but there's also like he's got eBay sales, he's got Etsy sales, he's got convention sales, he's got all these different things that he's popped under the table. If I kick any one leg out or any two or three legs out, the idea is that his career, it's going to take a hit, but it's
Hmm.
still workable. Like he can still make it work with a little bit of pioneer savings and tightening of the belt. He can make it work through the bad times. And that's my big advice for the upcoming recession is that um, if you have book sales, supplement it with Patreon. If you have Patreon, supplement it with a Kickstarter. If you have Kickstarter, supplement it with eBay sales or Etsy sales or convention sales. Supplement it with commissions and do it now in a slow, exploratory way so that when
Right.
crisis does hit your career, you are not casting around with wild eyes going, what can work? What can be made to work? I need a replacement for this one. Like
Yes.
even Brad and I would admit that our career underneath our table right now, the one leg that's entirely too big is our Patreon leg under our table.
Absolutely.
And if for some reason their management really messes up, or for some reason in a recession, everyone's like, Brad, I'd love to support you, but I got to pull back my $2 a month. And then,
Hmm.
400 people do that. That's trouble for Brad and I. So,
Yeah.
frankly, Brad and I should be thinking now, and I think we kind of are, about how to replace that income or at least supplement that income with other and different income streams.
Yep.
So we are. It's good advice for when things slow down to have started in better times. It's kind of like the grasshopper and the ant, if you remember that old
Yeah.
that
Yeah. I
old
remember that.
it's not a wives' tale. What do you call it? Fairy tale, I
Fable.
guess.
Fable.
Fable. There we go. Fable. That you kind of have to sock things away slowly but surely, but also be experimenting with new forms. Because Brad and I have had this a couple times in the last couple of weeks, where some artists who are in web comics and things aren't working, or some comic cartoonists who are in print and things aren't working, and we can tell when their career suddenly goes south because all of a sudden Brad and I will get a lot of emails where it's like, "Hey, so tell me real quick about how to do XYZ because no particular reason, just need to know really quickly how to do this in my career."
Yeah.
And boy, do we sympathize because it's happened to all of us. But the trick is in better times to experiment with different things in your career so that when the bad times hit, you go, oh, I did try that once. I know how to do that. And then you can
Right.
ramp up a little bit quicker when need presents itself. Don't you think, Brad?
I agree 100%. Yeah, keep familiarity with all these different things so that and also it's just good to have that stuff started so that you're not learning those rookie mistakes that you when you first start. You get all those rookie mistakes out when things are nice and calm because when things heat up, you want to have that stuff behind you and be able to say, okay, this thing isn't working. I'm going to move over to this other thing that I've been quietly cultivating for the last couple of years, and now I'm going to put a whole lot more steam behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just a good thing to have in your back pocket.
And listen, this is not just me preaching into the wind about doom and gloom. I'm not saying that things are going to end and, oh, no, it's going to be ash and woe in the apocalypse. I'm just saying recessions happen. And most CFOs and most economists that are polled right now think that a recession is going to start somewhere in 2019, 2020, based
Yep.
both on things that are happening in our economy and even bigger problems in China. And so what you want to do now is you want to start paying down your debt, right? That's one of the things you
Yes.
can do
Oh,
for
that's a
future
big
you.
one, Dave.
Pay down
Yeah.
your debt, and you always want to pay down the highest interest debt first. So if it's a certain credit card, pay that off before the student loan because the student loan's at a ridiculously low rate. Or you want to always go to the highest interest first, pay that one down, and then go to the next one. And then if you can, start to slowly also build an emergency fund. Even if it's just a couple weeks of funds at first, then you can build up to a month of emergency funds and ideally up to a half a year of emergency funds. And I know for a lot of people that's shooting the moon, but frankly, when bad times hit, you will be so glad that you have that emergency fund built up. And so what that means usually is a little bit of sacrifice. So maybe you don't buy that at whatever XYZ is to you. Instead, you sock it away. Because if you know that a recession's coming, it's usually a good idea to sock it away now so that you don't have double the pain later. And then with the people in your life, or even if it's just you, review your financial contingency plan. Like, cut your unnecessary spending, go over what your billing is every month, and see what you can trim. And also see what you can trim if things really go south. You know what I mean, Brad? Like,
right.
You can trim off the dumb fee right now. Do you need Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime? And also, you don't need 7 streaming services. But also, for when recession hits, you can have it ready to go. Like, I know I can immediately cut these 10 things and live a happy life. So have that ready to go too. But anyway, I just want to talk about that because I really do feel like after a 10-year cycle of fairly consistent growth, we're probably headed towards a downward trend and in the not too distant future. So I just want people to be thinking ahead because future you will thank present you for the work that you do to prepare.
Well, on that note, future Brad wants to thank present Dave for doing such an amazing job on another Comic Lab podcast.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. What kindness.
Yeah. Well, listen, it had to be said. And here's something else that needs to be said. You've been listening to Comic Lab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been the ever-kind Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the cartoonist of Evil Inc. at evil-comic.com.
And the avuncular Dave Kellett, co-director of Stripped and cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com.
And the Comic Lab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions at www.woodsong.media.
Comic Lab is made possible by your support on patreon.com/Comic Lab, so we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Comic Lab.
Oh, Excelsior, true believers. We're back here drawing Marvel Comics the Marvel way. And with me is John. John, you want to tell us about what you're going to be drawing today? I will be drawing a tree, Brad Geiger. It's going to be a tree. You look a little nervous there, John. No need to be upset about the cameras. Just draw in the normal way. I'm fine. It's going to be a great drawing session. Okay, true believers, going to take a quick 5-minute break.
And John's going to have a drink.